It's time for the Lowell Green Show, originating live on BlastTheRadio.com. Ask your smart speaker to play Blast the Radio. Live video available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Email Lowell at BlastTheRadio.com. The number to call or text is 613-413-2217. And now, telling it like it is, here's Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Yeah, and it's not very good. She's done it. State of Michigan governor has ordered Line 5 shut down tomorrow.
Whoa.
Now, I just very quickly want to, once again tell you that Line 5 supplies 540,000 barrels of Alberta crude oil to Sarnia every single day. It supplies nearly half of the light crude oil, the light synthetic oil, and about half the natural gas liquids required by the provinces of Ontario and Quebec. So just to repeat, the governor, Elizabeth Whitmer of Michigan, has ordered Enbridge to shut down Line 5, bringing about half. I've always been saying about 40, but the story I have this morning indicates that it's almost half of essentially all the oil, gas, and natural gas, and by the way, a fair amount of the propane used by Ontario and Quebec. Now, it's been hard to get information on this. I only found this out about 15 minutes ago. I'm not sure if the rest of the media has the story or not, or if the media is smart enough to understand the significance, the importance of the story. But I'm telling you that this is one of the most important stories of the year. Not more important than vaccines and COVID-19, but one of the most important stories, because this involves essentially the energy security of Canada's two major provinces, Ontario and Quebec. You can only imagine what would happen if we lose about half the supplies of oil, gas, natural gas, and propane for Ontario and Quebec. You can imagine what would happen, not only to your automobile and your truck to drive, out to picnics, but how about our industry? And by the way, a good chunk of the jet fuel used at Pearson International Airport is also carried on Line 5, although apparently they have been able to diversify. Now, this should not come as a surprise, because it was last November that Governor Whitmer announced that she was going to demand that Line 5 be shut down. She says that it is a risk. There is several hundred yards that go under the Straits of Mackinac, and if there was a leak, and that's very true, this is 67 years old, this pipeline, been there for a long, long time. There's been no accidents. Excuse me, there's been no spills from it to this point, but there have been some accidents, and this is one of the things that is very, very disturbing to the state of Michigan. On a couple of occasions, boat anchors, have been dropped on it, and a couple of times chains have been dragged. And as Elizabeth Whitmer points out, and she's not alone, she has very strong support from many of the Democratic governors in all of the United States, many environmental groups, and many Native groups. And by the way, Native groups, including right here in Ontario, and environmental groups here. So not only are we being stabbed in the back by the state of Michigan, but we're being stabbed in the back once again by a large number of Canadian groups, including a group, the Anishinaabe National Grand Chief Glenn Hare represents 39 First Nations Indians, First Nations natives across Ontario, and they want the line closed. So we've got to deal with the state of Michigan. We've got to deal with a good many Democratic governors. We don't know where Joe Biden stands on this. There have been meetings, we're not sure how many, we're not sure how productive, if productive at all, with Joe Biden. At one point, there was a telephone conversation, we understand, between Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden. How much of it entailed Line 5, I don't know, but it was raised. But to this point, the White House, Joe Biden, has not had a word to say about Line 5. So very clearly, at the very least, he has not come to the defense of Canada. Now, Enbridge says that it's going to defy this. and is not going to shut the line down. So, among other things, this signals the start of a very, very serious dispute between Canada and the United States. Um, I mean, historically, it's been a very, very productive friendship between our two nations, but this is a very serious breach in that. As I say, the energy security of Ontario and Quebec rests pretty well with Line 5. The governor of the state of Michigan, joined by a good many other governors, says no, shut it down. They don't care what happens to the economy of Ontario and Quebec. There are all kinds of arguments. What's going to happen tomorrow, I don't know. She says it's got to be shut down tomorrow. Now, undoubtedly, there have been some negotiations. There was hope that the negotiations, in fact, I announced, I think about 2 or 3 days ago, that it was unlikely it would be shut down while negotiations are underway. I still don't know if it's going to be shut down, but I am surprised. I must tell you, I am surprised. I thought that Whitmer would back off while negotiations are underway. But this, among other things, demonstrates how serious she is about this. Despite the fact that there have been negotiations, including with the White House, she has ordered the pipeline to be shut down tomorrow. I repeat, 540,000 barrels of crude oil every single day. This is Alberta. Supplies almost half of all the oil, gas, natural gas supplies, and propane supplies for Ontario and Quebec, and a good chunk of the jet fuel for Pearson. Will it be shut down tomorrow? I don't know what to say anymore. Enbridge says it's not going to shut it down. What sort of legal action could be taken? I don't know. I'll tell you one of the things that really concerns me. As you know, hackers have been successful in shutting down essentially a major pipeline in the United States. It's causing havoc throughout a number of the eastern states. The price of gasoline, among other things, escalating in many of the eastern states. And apparently they still haven't got this thing resolved. This is almost 5 days that essentially a major supplier of oil and gas in the United States has been hacked into and disrupted severely. So very clearly, it seems to me that with this controversy that is now building with Line 5, it scares the hell out of me to think that even if Enbridge says that it's going to continue pumping oil through that line, the hackers may have a different view. And I'm just bringing you the news, folks. I don't think it's very encouraging. And as I've said before, even if for some way we manage to escape this time, the fact that governments, and by the way, I include, previous conservative governments in this as well, the fact that this country and all of its federal governments have allowed this kind of situation to exist for 67 years is disgraceful. I say criminal. To leave a major supply of oil and gas essentially in the hands of the United States, a foreign power. Folks, what we're talking about is a foreign power. Oh, friends, yeah, well, I don't think Michigan's much of a friend these days. The governor sure as hell is not. But we have left the security, the energy security of our two major provinces in the hands of a foreign power. Almost 1/3 of all oil and gas coming into this country already from Quebec eastward is foreign. Even though we have the world's third largest supply of oil in the ground, about 1/3 of all oil gas burned in Canada comes from foreign sources, a good chunk of it of the United States. Well, if they shut down Line 5, more than half of all the oil and gas in this country will be coming from the United States. We will obviously very clearly have to get the bulk of our oil and gas for Ontario and Quebec from the United States. Where else would we get it if we can't get it on Line 5? The fact that governments, one after the other, have allowed this to continue is unconscionable. I cannot imagine politicians, some of our leading scientists, not raising this issue before and saying, you know what, we better make sure that we have an all-Canadian route here. This is too damned risky. Running a pipeline down through Wisconsin, through Michigan, over the Straits of Mackinac, then down through Michigan again. That, we can't leave. What would happen if we got a real rogue government in the United States, for God's sake? Some would say we got it with Trump, but Trump would not shut this down, but Joe Biden may very well. At any rate, I just want to summarize that, folks, if you're just joining us. The state of Michigan, I'll just read you the story that I have. The state of Michigan has told a Canadian energy company, that would be Enbridge, it must shut down a controversial oil and gas pipeline by tomorrow, amid growing fears that a spill would be catastrophic to the region. It's a feud that threatens to strain relations between Canada and the United States. I guess it does. The company's refusal to comply with the order and swift support from top Canadian officials highlights the politicized nature of pipelines. And as I've said, there is a lot of support in this country to shut down the pipeline. Native groups, and how determined Justin Trudeau is to keep this pipeline going, I don't know. We all know where Trudeau stands and his government stands. This guy, Stephen Guilbeault, et cetera, et cetera. I'll deal with him a little bit later. But, we know where the Liberal Party stands on pipelines. They've shut down 2, maybe 3. And we're having difficulty getting the 4th one going as well. So, how much of a defense has Canada put up against the United States? God only knows. We'll never know for sure. We'll never get the truth out of these guys. All we can do is hope and pray that somehow or other Enbridge is able to persevere here and continue pumping oil. But I repeat, the state of Michigan, this is not just one person. This is the state of Michigan has ordered the pipeline to be shut down as of midnight tonight. Enbridge says it won't, but the courts and the hackers may have something else to say. I'll leave that with you, folks. Anybody has any thoughts on that? I would very much like, maybe it's not time for jokes today. This is a very serious issue. Very serious. John and I were talking before going on the air about this, and John said, well, be prepared to pay $2 a liter. I said, my response was, yeah, if you can find any.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, and I'm not trying to spread fear or anything else, but I'm just trying to be practical here. Yesterday, Debbie was out, had to pick up some drugs for me. And I said, honey, I think it might be a good idea to fill the car up with gas, because if they close down Line 5, God knows how much it'll cost if we'll be able to get it. And she did. She put a full tank. And John, you tanked up your truck yesterday as well.
Like the first time since March. I mean, this is the other thing. $2 a liter's, a possibility. Where the hell am I going? There's nowhere to go in this lockdown. By the way, just a correction. I think you've called her Elizabeth Whitner. It's Gretchen.
Sorry. What did I say? I'm sorry.
I think we said Elizabeth, yep. but Gretchen is her name.
Yes.
And we do have a fair number of comments. By the way, we've got a call coming in, too. You want to go to the call at 613-413-2217? Don't know who it is, but
please, yeah.
Let's take the call. You're on with Lowell Green. Go ahead, please. Your name.
Hi, Lowell. It's Guy. I haven't called in a long, long time. I wanted to call in today to go on the record on a couple of things.
Sure.
We have Seamus O'Regan. Don't forget that. We can hold fast and hold tight if we get Seamus O'Regan. Do you have a bunch of gas cans in the Coupe de Carp?
No.
You better get them, because they're going fast at Canadian Tire. I was there yesterday, and the shelves were about half full.
Really?
Now, the third point I want to make is today, the day before they closed or basically have told us to shut it down, gas in Ontario is $1.27 a liter. So that's the third point I want to make.
Okay.
And I think that you are very, very correct, sir, in the fact that because we've got a democratically elected radical left governor in Michigan is the only reason that this is happening, because after 67 years, we've had no problems at all until we've basically got this progressive radical left woman who is basically touting the green energy, and she basically wants to cut off 50% of our energy supply, which we all know what happened in the eastern United States for a bunch of hackers. So thank you very much, Democrats. Thank you very much, Gretchen Whitmer. And I did want to point out as well that Mark Sutcliffe penned a really good article about the Ottawa Hospital. You may not get a chance to get to it today, but it's actually very, very good. And I just such enjoy listening to your show, Lowell. I wish that you would bring it to an hour to get in more callers, because, you know, you get that rant going for about 10, 15 minutes. You got a couple of sponsors, and I think people want to hear you, and they don't want to call in because there's not enough time. So I'm still very much flagging on go to an hour.
Thank you very much, Guy. Thank you. Yeah, we have Seamus O'Regan on our side. I'm not sure if Seamus O'Regan is dealing with it. I'm not sure whose side he's on. I'm going to move on because I do have some other topics here. But earlier this month, Canada's Natural Resources Minister said the continued operation of the pipeline, quote, was non-negotiable. Well, I mean, that's easy for him to say. But he warned that in addition to thousands of job losses, a shutdown of Line 5 would require 800 tanker rail cars and 2,000 trucks each day to move the oil. 800 tanker rail cars and 2,000 trucks each day to move the oil. Gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of volume that goes through these pipelines. That's what's required for 50% or roughly 50% of what we require in Ontario and Quebec. 800 tanker rail cars, 2,000 trucks each day, every day, to move the oil that we would lose from Line 5. So all of you people out there who don't like pipelines, think about that, if some of you think at all. All right, let's move on. First of all, a word about good friends of ours, and I mean that, good friends at Shields up there in Pakenham. Once again, I want to remind you all that we're dealing with a local company, been in business, same family. You know what? I did a little bit of research in the past couple of weeks on this. I may do a little bit of a story about the number of businesses that have survived in this province, or certainly in this area, in the last 50 years, essentially in the same family, and they're not too many. Now, there's some family farms that have lasted 50 years, have been in the same family, but not too many businesses. But Shields is one of them. Started in 1947 with a grandfather, then the father, and now the son. They do a great job, totally local. They're what I call valley friendly, even including the driver. I keep getting comments about the drivers, but I think most of all, don't forget, they've got what you want in stock, and all probability it'll be right there, be delivered to your house, wherever, or your business within 2 to 3 days at most. And the prices, very, very competitive. In fact, there's a sale right now. Shields.ca. John, we got some more emails coming in here.
We have got a ton.
Let's hear some.
Here we go. Tim says the only upside to the closure of Line 5 is that the progressive crowd is now going to find out what it will really be like without fossil fuels. Lori says it will get worse than the vaccine fiasco. Cheryl says, didn't Seamus just file court papers? Liberals late as usual. Mike says, what's the main reason for the closure anyways? Is it all because our government has not maintained the pipeline properly?
Let me respond to that. I don't know. The pipeline is, I mean, it's been there since 1953, 67 years. And there have been some acts. Now, there have been no leaks from that particular pipeline, although there was one Enbridge pipeline in the Kalamazoo River that did leak into the can't say it anymore, Kalamazoo River sometime within the last year. And of course, Ms. Whitmer keeps referring to that. But the concern is that this pipeline is very old. And if it does spring a leak, it would. I mean, there's no question it would be disastrous. It would leak oil into Lakes Michigan, Lake Huron, and maybe even some into Lake Superior. And this is the main reason why that most of the indigenous groups in Canada, certainly in Ontario, want it shut down as well. They say that, you know, that damaging Lake Michigan, Lake Huron would damage many of their areas, et cetera, et cetera. So, and of course, we know where the environmental groups stand. So we've got it's a very formidable foe that we have. The state of Michigan, a number of Democratic governors in other states across the United States. We've got indigenous groups in the United States, environmental groups in the United States. We've got indigenous groups in Canada, environmental groups in Canada, and God knows where the Liberals. I'm not even. And the Green Party, by the way, in Canada thinks that it should be shut down as well. Where the NDP stands on this, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they think it should be shut down. The fact that that it would have to be replaced with 800 tanker cars and 2,000 trucks a day doesn't seem to register with these lefties. Doesn't seem to register that if you're really concerned about the environment, it would seem to me that 540,000 barrels a day coming through a pipeline is far more environmentally friendly than 800 tanker cars and 2,000 trucks every day. I could be wrong. Excuse me, my throat is really giving out here. Pardon me. Barry's on the line. Okay, Barry, yes, we're going to keep her brief here today, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I'll give you a break on your voice there, Lowell.
Yes, go ahead.
There was a show on PBS television last week about the Great Lakes and about Line 5, and they showed some underwater filming of the pipeline, and they said that one of the main problems that the state of Michigan has is that the whole pipeline was supposed to be supported underwater, and some of the film they had of it showed clearly that the sand or ground or whatever underneath the pipeline had been undermined by water currents, and the pipeline wasn't being properly supported in some places. But I think this governor, like you said, she's just so anti-pipeline that Enbridge has made the offer to bore a huge tunnel underneath the Great Lakes, following the same path as Line 5, and then just putting a new pipeline in down in the tunnel, which would be far safer than having it go through the straits. And
Yes.
even doing that, the Michigan government fought against it and stopped that too. So hopefully Enbridge will have some kind of recourse, and they'll be able to put that tunnel through, and there'll be no disruption other than maybe a couple hours someday when they switch over from.
But let me ask you this, Barry. Barry, stop for just a minute. I mean, if somehow or other we're able to squeak through here, at the very least, it's going to create a lot of friction between Canada and the United States. We don't need that. But more importantly, do you not find it almost criminal that government after government for 67 years has allowed this situation to exist, where we leave the security, the energy security for our two major provinces in the hands of a foreign power? Do you not find that disgraceful?
Yes, I think it is, Lowell, and I think we should nationalize our oil and gas industries and a lot of our mining industries. We should nationalize it all, and all our pipelines should run through Canada. If they want to branch them off.
Sorry, nationalize my ass. There's no way that I want the government to own all of the pipelines. Come on, Barry. There should be an all-Canadian route. But you know who tried the nationalization of the oil industry and it really worked out well? Venezuela. Barry, you and I are going to disagree on this one, sir. Thank you for your call. I really appreciate your call. I have to deal with something else. I got to deal with this guy, Stephen Guilbeault. I have a question for you. I'm going to ask the question while I'm still allowed to ask questions, okay? Because it's still my program, and I'm not censored as yet. How in the hell did a guy so dumb, so totally out of touch with reality, ever get elected? And an addendum to that question. How in the hell did a guy as dumb and out of touch with reality as Stephen Guilbeault ever get appointed to the cabinet? Oh, I forgot. Trudeau appointed him. This guy is unbelievable. Have you been trying to make sense of what he is saying? I don't know how many times I have watched this guy come on television and try to explain what the hell Bill C-10 is. One day it's one thing, another day it's another thing, and another day it's another thing. And then he says one thing one day, and then he comes back and says, well, I really didn't say that, even though he did say that. But so he says something else. It would appear that he has no freaking idea what Bill C-10 is. Except, you know what is nagging away at my brain here? Is this guy really that dumb? Or is he just playing dumb to try and get this thing through? There is no question in my mind, or in the minds of, reasonably intelligent people, that the true intent of Bill C-10 is to shut guys up like me, and much more importantly, Ezra Levant in the Rebel, and blast the radio. They don't want anybody still free out there to say what they feel about Trudeau, about Liberals, or about anything. They have been very effective in shutting down almost the media, almost completely. Criticism from the print media, $600 million bribe. CBC, I mean, we don't have to talk about the CBC. CTV has got to kiss government ass in order to get approval for new franchises, new rate increases. So, like CTV, Bell Media, they've got to kiss government ass as well. So essentially, with a few rare exceptions, Brian Lilley being one, they've pretty well muted criticism from the mainstream media. All that's left are guys like Ezra Levant. He's got Ezra Levant and the Rebel. You may not agree with him. I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but you know what? He should be free to do what he does. He should be free to say whatever he wants. Why should the government try to shut down Ezra Levant because it's critical of the government? He has over 1 million subscribers. It's so very clearly, Bill C-10 passes, even amended, Ezra Levant is gone. Free speech for Ezra Levant is gone. You know who else is gone? Lowell Green. I don't have 1 million subscribers. I wish I did. But I got a few hundred, maybe 1,000, maybe more. And are they going to allow me, do you think, to continue to criticize? Are you joking? How long do you think it would be before they shut me down? That's the true intent. So, excuse me, whether Stephen Guilbeault is really this dumb, like I don't know if anybody can really live and be as dumb as he appears to be. Is he really this dumb, or is he just trying to play dumb so that somehow or other he can slip through one of the most treacherous bills that any government has ever tried to slip through? I don't know. I'd like to hear from you whether you think the guy is for real or if he's just trying to bluff his way through. But holy smokes. You know what? I don't understand how people can vote for people like that. They jump and, you know, one of the things that's very disconcerting, we have as, the chief advisor to the Prime Minister, Gerald Butts, who pretty well destroyed the economy of Ontario. Gerald Butts, among other accomplishments, I believe he took, well, I have to be careful what I say here, but let's just say that he cost us taxpayers millions of dollars under false idea. You know, he sold us on the idea. He was head of the World Wildlife Fund for Canada, right? And so he sold the idea that the polar bears were all dying, and the only thing was going to save them is if we paid 5 cents for each plastic bag at a shopping center, and most of that money went to the World Wildlife Fund Canada. This was Gerald Butts. That was his brainchild. And then the Green Energy Act in Ontario and Quebec. So he's there. He's chief advisor to the Prime Minister. And we've got Stephen Guilbeault, who's head of Greenpeace, you know, with obviously a very influential guy in the cabinet. Scares the bejesus out of me. Yes, John, more comments here.
Eric says, really, we need an hour, please. So he's begging you for an hour. Chrissy says she doesn't understand why this is not a top news story. Those are her words. Julie says she was just on Twitter, saw nothing about it. I did see the CBC criticizing Bill C-10 the other day. I'll find that story for you, Lowell, and I'll send it to you. Hazel says Guilbeault is Trudeau's good friend. In Trudeau's wedding pictures, went to school together. Plus, he was head of Greenpeace in Quebec for 10 years. Peter says, thing is, he's smarter than Trudeau. He's not too out of touch. He's a former high-level Greenpeacer. That's what got him to a candidate in the first place. He's playing dumb. Look at everything in the U.S. Full control by social media company protects Biden. Ban Trump on Twitter. Trudeau is coming after Rebel. Rebel has almost been removed off YouTube, and PayPal has dropped Rebel the other day. Mail-in ballots coming for the next federal election. He's like a fox, the federal minister. Back to the pipeline. Ray says, if the pipeline comes from Alberta, why not tap into it so it doesn't go through the states and continue into Canada?
Look at the map.
Yep.
I mean, this now, as I've pointed out before, and people don't seem to be catching on, there is a pipeline that's an all-Canadian route. This is the pipeline stretching from Alberta down through to Cornwall that was intended for Energy East. It now carries natural gas. The plan for Energy East was that natural gas would be taken out. We'd get natural gas from other sources, Line 5, and we would, instead of running natural gas through this all-Canadian line, would run oil. But Trudeau turned it down. So as a consequence, well, we're stuck. Centennial Glass. You're never stuck with Centennial Glass, believe me. No matter what it is, if it's glass, Centennial Glass can do it. Custom-made glass, glass furniture, windows and doors. I mean, there's nobody does it better at more economical prices and with better workmanship than Centennial Glass. Windows, doors, patios, glass furniture, lovely framed mirrors, and cut glass. If you have any kind of a design, you need some glass for any purpose, Centennial Glass is the place, folks. They've been in business a long time. Good people, once again, local people. Centennial Glass, Industrial Avenue here in Ottawa, and up there in good old Renfrew. We're over time, John.
We are.
Okay, a couple more comments.
We got about 20 of them, so we can, and most of them are on Facebook. People can read them there. And thank you for your comments today, by the way. Glenn says, according to my brother in Detroit area, there have been historic spills. You can check out Enbridge/Kalamazoo spill.
Yeah, in the Kalamazoo River, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Lisa asks, what's Whitmer going to suggest as an alternative?
Oh, she doesn't. She's not suggesting any alternative.
Cheryl says, this is exactly why we need self-sufficient here in Canada. An email from...
Precisely.
Yep. An email from Lisa who says, maybe the threat or even closure of the Line 5 is a mixed blessing. It might just spur this country into getting our Energy East and West lines built. Too many people sitting on their hands, frigging the dog, and not doing a darn thing for this country, trying to drag their careers out till retirement.
Now, there's a phrase that won't be allowed after Bill C-10 is passed.
Frigging the dog?
Yeah, that's it. All right. Thank you all, folks. Great. Good response today. I really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. Join us live weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on blasttheradio.com.